G'day legends, in this video, I'm going to be talking to you about how to get more consistent sales in your e-commerce business by installing a carefully choreographed and planned promotional rhythm to your brand. If you don't know me, my name is Jay Wright. I run the Ecommerce Equation, which is Australia's largest community of e-commerce brands. We teach people how to run ads in-house, how to scale their business, get better conversion, do better demand planning, operate their business for maximum profit. There are 230 brands in our network right now. Collectively, we spent $74 million on Facebook ads last year. We all work collaboratively together to scale beyond any of us could do individually. So let's get into it. The first thing I want to talk to you guys about is revenue peaks. So we like to have massive mega sale events, but we also want to make sure that we're not creating a discount brand. So most of the brands that I work with are selling their own products and they're trying to preserve some degree of brand integrity and they're trying to have some custodianship over the brand. And usually discounting isn't their USP. It's not what they're going to market with. And we need to make sure that we don't get perceived like a discount brand. So if you think of a supermarket, inevitably you're going to have a product that you know is always going to be on discount at some point in the next week or two. It might be tea, it might be tuna. Like I've never paid $2 for a can of tuna because I always know it's going to be $1 at some point in the next 3 weeks. So there is a cadence of these heavy discounts, these site-wide, all of your A grade, B grade, C grade stock discounted. There is a cadence that you can achieve for your brand, which will leave enough time between those events where people kind of forget and they have the opportunity to purchase full price or with a lesser incentive. Usually this is 3 or 4 peaks throughout the year. I think the safest bet is 3 peaks for most Australian brands. You're going to be running a Black Friday. If you're not running Black Friday, I highly encourage you to. It is one of the most crazy events of the year. You'll probably also run some form of end of financial year. It is another sale peak, another frothy peak. And if you think of the distribution of those, you've got mid to late November, then you've got middle of the year. So usually it's a good idea to introduce a third peak somewhere at the start of the year, especially if you, like a lot of people, have a soft January and February. Planning for a peak, not just shooting from the hip, is important. When we do sales, we run a 7-figure sales strategy, which is designed to get 2 to 6 weeks of revenue on the sale launch day. To do this, you need to plan and you need to prepare. And there's a particular system you need to deploy for that. So the last thing you want to do is if you're only going to do 3 of these site-wide best stock on discount events, the last thing you want to do is wake up on Friday morning, have a knee-jerk reaction and send an email with 40% off site-wide, because you are missing the opportunity. If you do that, you will get best case 1 week revenue from that promotion, and really you'll be missing out on creating a proper sale plan, just like you would with a Black Friday, to maximize those events. The second thing I want to talk to you about is once you've got those peaks mapped out, you really want to be thinking about new. So nearly all of us have new. And the most common mistake that I see is people drop collections, and they drop quarterly collections, seasonal collections. They might do an autumn, a winter, a spring, and a summer, and they drop 90 products and they sit on that for 90 days. And the problem with that, it's too much for the customer to ingest. You need to spread out your new. So you want the new messaging to be frequent and clear. Otherwise, products get lost. There's the 80-20 rule, 20% of the release will get 80% of the volume, and the other 80% gets lost, and it's more likely to end up in some form of discount cycle. So by splitting out your drops from big quarterly collections into, 1 or 2 pieces or a logical grouping and more frequent drops, inevitably you'll just lift the base, right? You'll have better messaging, you'll have more cut through. Rather than saying summer is now live, if you say new teas just dropped, people who are interested in teas will be ready to go, right? So it's more specific messaging and there's more of it. Generally that leads to better outcomes. So when it comes to new, think about how you're dropping it. Think about how you can actually maximize your new messaging. That will lift your entire base. Third point I want to get to is events. If you think of your brand as having a buying zone, there's inevitably going to be particular times of year where people are in the buying zone. Maybe it's the change of season. Maybe it's when there's particular things going on. What we want to do is we want to constantly be trying to pull people back into the buying zone. And there's 2 ways to do that, with relevance and with incentives. Now, I would always prefer to do it with relevance. How can we do that? I'll give you an example, right? I am filming this on Australia Day. So if your brand had anything to do with Australia Day and you could put out a particular offer, whether it's a particular design or some sort of style that would have been relevant for Australia Day, and you might just pull in a group of people who are interested in that. Another example might be Mother's Day. So one of my brands, AB to Jay-Z, did like $500,000 in sales of this kid's book by adding a Mother's Day card, right? We created a hip hop themed card for the hip hop loving mum. And we said free gift card with every book purchased. And we did a gigantic month, not because we're particularly great as a gift, but just because we made the gift more relevant to that period. And we were able to pull people back into the buying zone with our product by latching onto an occasion. So any observations like International Yoga Day, International Women's Day, any holidays like Easter, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Christmas, anything like that you can attach your brand to, as long as it's congruent and logical, you can really start to plan those events in advance. So you've got these magical serendipitous sort of occasions that pop up, and you are very well planned, and you've got a thoughtful offer that pulls people from outside of the buying zone to start thinking about your product for those occasions. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is promotions, right? So how to actually increase the incentive. Now, if you've got some big peaks and you're really advertising your new well, and you're pulling back in with relevance versus discounting, you should need less promotions, right? Which means you're selling more full price goods, or you're selling more often at the time and at the price that you set. So this is important. We want to not be completely dependent on promotions, but all of us are going to come into some point of the year where it's slow. It might be an environmental thing. Maybe the weather's not coming as fast as you needed it to. Maybe there's some other discounting going on. Whatever happens, right? You are going to need to run some promotions. You are going to get heavy on stock and need to do something to increase sales. And if nothing else has worked or you don't have anything planned, you're going to need to respond in the moment. Let's talk about how to do effective promotions. The first thing you need to decide is what style of promotion you want to run. And I think there's two big styles. The first is you have overstock of particular products or categories, and everything else is kind of going okay, but you're getting a bit unsettled about how much is sitting on one particular line of product. The other is you've just generally got a lull in demand across the board. And the way that you respond is important, because the last thing you want to do is run a promo and you burn through all of the A-grade stock that was selling anyway. And again, no one bought the B and the C grade stock, and you've still got that cash tied up. So what we want to do is we want to liquidate and move stock that wasn't moving and preserve the stuff that, hopefully will move full price anyway. First thing you want to do is just ascertain what stock you need to move. So looking at things like weeks cover, looking at things like your total holding, and just getting an idea of what's going on and what should you focus on is the first step. The second step, when you're creating these promos, is to think about giving with one hand and taking with the other. An ideal promotion is something where you get equal profit as not doing the promotion. Some great examples from that would be increasing the average order value. So spend and saves, 2 for 100 or 2 for X price. So people are having to increase the average order value or increase their basket size to access the incentive. It still costs the same amount to ship a $100 order as it does a $150 order. So the percentage of shipping goes from 10% way down, right? And that's what you want to think about, is how do I actually create an offer where I'm getting with one hand while I give with the other? There's a suite of these things that might work for you. If you just do a 25% off t-shirts discount, people will probably buy 1 or 2 and they'll move on. If you do a 3 for 100 or a 3 for 120, to access the discount, they will give you 3 units, right? And then you know that you can bake in an equivalent profit. Guys, if you run this, if you plan your peaks, if you maximize your new, you increase your relevance to different occasions throughout the year, and then you run smart promos, I think you will have far more consistency in your store. I think you'll be far better equipped to respond to the slow patches, and I think you'll end up with more profit and more revenue. So let me know how you go. Cheers.